chapter 2 of Nahum, verse 1. He who breaks in pieces has come up before your face. He who breaks in pieces has come up before your face. Guard the ramparts, watch the way, strengthen your loins, fortify your power very much. So he who breaks in pieces has come up before your face. We just saw how Yahweh is breaking in pieces all the rocks, representing any refuge, any power, any strength, any false doctrine that people have against the Most High. And also what I mentioned regarding Yehezkel, Ezekiel, how Yahweh told him that he would make his head harder than the stone, harder than the diamond. In fact, he said the shamid, in order to break the heads of those that stand against Yahweh, who are stubborn in the false doctrine. So he who breaks in pieces, who is also called the breaker in Micah, he who breaks in pieces has come up before your face. Guard the ramparts, watch the way, strengthen your loins, fortify your power very much, as in get ready for war. It's pretty much what this means, because he's coming like a man of war, as it is prophesied, a gibor, but not of physical war, but spiritual war. Many in Judaism expect the Messiah to appear, Messiah ben Joseph, to be in the army, to be a literal soldier, not understanding the spiritual fighting which we are, which was revealed in the New Covenant. So that's why pretty much, even though he was in the Old Covenant, but they weren't able to see it. So they still cannot see it because Yahushua, they did not accept Mashiach, so they remain blind. Now, verse 2. For Yahweh shall turn back the splendor of Yaakov. For Yahweh shall turn back the splendor of Yaakov, like the splendor of Israel. For the emptiers have emptied them out and ruined their vine branches. Remember that Yaakov represents the many, Israel represents the few, the same person, same people, two different names. Those who do not accept the name of Mashiach are represented by Yaakov. They are supplanters. Those who accept the name of Mashiach are represented by the name Israel. They will rule like the mighty one, what that name means. Those who contend with the mighty one and with men, for they persevere even when they are hated by all. For Yahweh shall turn back the splendor of Yaakov like the splendor of Israel. For the emptiers have emptied them out and ruined their vine branches. As we know, the many are grapes. Israel is represented by the vine. So the enemy has taken everything from the people of Yahweh, from the few and the many. They have left us empty, and they have ruined the vine branches, as in all joy. The shields of his mighty men have become red. Obviously, from the blood, red also represents sin. Shield in the in our spiritual war represents the faith. The shields of his mighty men have become red. The men of battle are in scarlet. The chariots are like flaming torches in the day of his preparation, and the cypresses shall be shaken. People are like trees. Some give fruit, some don't. But all will be shaken when he manifests. The shields of his mighty men have become red. We could say, because what I mentioned, how faith has become sinful back nowadays, for they call good evil and evil good. They call Yahweh by the title of the enemy. The men of battle are in scarlet. Scarlet represents once again sin. Yahweh comes in scarlet because it is like Yaakov who got dressed as Esau, who is called Edom, which means red. So the last comes in red, in scarlet, as we see in Isaiah 65. That's why he also comes like the prodigal son. He needs to be cleansed through Mashiach. That's why in Isaiah 63, he says that he comes in red and he saves himself. That's why Yahweh, since he had to come as the prodigal son in the end, he came 2,000 years before that to leave salvation available. The shields of his mighty men have become red. The men of battle are in scarlet. Also, scarlet connects with royalty. The chariots are like flaming torches. That's interesting because Eliyahu was taken on a chariot of horses of fire. The chariots are like flaming torches, connecting it with the end in which the fire will manifest, Yahweh as the consuming fire. In the day of his preparation, he's preparing to take the world, the kingdom, and the cypresses shall be shaken. And also, it is like saying that when the world is speaking of war, that will be the day of his preparation. As in, while there are rumors of war, as Mashiach said in Matthew 24, Luke 17, Mark 13, that's when he would be preparing. The chariots dash about in the streets. They rush one another in the broad ways. They look like flaming torches. They run like lightning. They run like lightning. This could be referring to the technology of nowadays being used for war, being explained this way by the prophet, as in those who will fight during the sixth seal, for instance, which may be the army of, well, is the army of the book of Joel, the prophet, which doesn't seem to be a human army because of the way they act, the power they have. So the chariots dash about in the streets. They rush one another in the broad ways. They look like flaming torches. They run like lightning. He remembers his noble ones. They stumble in their walk. They hurry to her walls. And the defense is prepared. He remembers his noble ones. They stumble in their walk. As we know, well, Yahweh, Yahushua is the way to Yahweh. And those who are not in Yahushua correctly in the true doctrine, they will obviously stumble in their walk. Those who are away from the way will obviously fall, for they are not in the true way. So he remembers his noble ones. They stumble in their walk. They hurry to her walls. It's in the walls of the city, but also like in the walls of the great whore. They hurry to get refuge in the false doctrine. And the defense is prepared. The river gates have been opened and the palace is melted. The river gates have been opened. Basically, Yahweh is opening the river gates for the river of his revelation to come to the world, but he will get a lot of people drowned. As the palace of the enemy is melted, like the false Elohim made of metal that I mentioned in the previous chapter, connected with Samael. Well, depending on the metal also, because iron would connect with Lucifer, Halel. Well, actually, we would say iron with Samael, and bronze with Halel. It's actually how it would be. Bronze, in a way, is also connected with Azazel for other reasons. And it is established And it is established, she shall be exiled, she shall be led away, and her female servants are moaning as with the voice of doves, beating on their breasts. And it is established, she shall be exiled, she shall be led away. Just like the people of Israel were exiled throughout history many times and still are. She shall be led away. We'll see the rest of the context, but if we see it connected with the previous mention of the great whore, the great whore will fall, in a way, be exiled from her comfort, which she thinks will last forever. And it is established, she shall be exiled, she shall be led away, and her female servants are moaning as with the voice of those beaten on their breasts. As in the false congregations, her female servants are moaning as with the voice of doves. The dove is the shape that the Ruach took to enter Mashiach. So the false congregations are moaning as if they were spirits, as if they had the spirit, beating on their breasts. Breasts represent power, providence. They are beating on themselves, for they have no power. They realize they have no providence. It's as in they won't receive anything else afterwards. Verse 7. And Nineveh, as I was saying, I said earlier, since Nineveh is a nation, nations are represented as females, and therefore it represents the great whore of Babylon. That's why Nineveh, well, not why, but one of the reasons why Nineveh and Babylon represent one another. So in this case, like I was saying, as the great whore of Babylon and all her female servants, the false congregations. And Nineveh of all was like a pool of water. Now they flee away. Stop, stop, they cry, but no one turns back. And Nineveh of all was like a pool of water. Remember how in Bethesda, there was a pool of water where an angel would come down and touch the water. If the first person that would come down to touch the water or get close to touch the water, that person would be healed. Mashiach entered and healed a person that was not able to walk towards the water, showing that Mashiach can heal anytime, anybody, anywhere, he himself being the water of life, in contrast with a false doctrine in which they promise miracles every Sunday or something like that, yet only one perhaps sometimes may receive a miracle. And if it is a true miracle, comes from Yahweh because of his or her faith, but most of the time it is just an act. They get paid, they're acting, or they are so emotional that their bodies feel like they are healed, yet the next day or later on goes back to the same. And and Nineveh of all was like a pool of water. So the great whore, the false doctrine, may have looked like a place of miraculous healing, like a place of good teachings. But now they flee away. Stop, stop, they cry, but no one turns back. For instance, like those who will flee away from the doctrine, and those false teachers will say, stop, stop, but no one will turn back, hopefully, in the sense of the chosen. Well, the chosen one for sure. I mean, the rest may go back. But in this case, obviously, it's referring to a lot more than that I just mentioned. No one turns back to help. No one turns back. Also, remember when Mashiach, when Yahweh destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, and he told Lot and his wife not to turn back. So Yahushua said the days of the coming of the Son of Man will be like the days of Lot and the days of Noah. Nahum is as Noah, and now we see another connection with Sodom and Gomorrah and therefore with Lot. But once again, this is referring to other things. It's just that if we take out these words, they connect with that moment. Plunder the silver, plunder the gold. Everything that is in the hands of the false congregation, the great whore of Babylon, who, as we know, is covered in blood. I mean, well, in blood as well, but I mean gold. She's dressed with gold and precious stones. So plunder the silver, plunder the gold. There is no limit to the treasure, a wealth of all precious objects, as we see in Revelation regarding the great whore of Babylon. And as we know, when Israel came out of Egypt, left Egypt empty of gold. She's empty, even emptiness and waste. Not only is she, the great whore, empty of treasures once this happens, she will be empty of everything. She will be emptiness itself. She represents emptiness, like the emptiness that people feel in their hearts when they don't have the true doctrine, the true Messiah. And they are wasted, not only because of the wine of the great whore, but wasted through the desolation that they are about to go through. She's empty, even emptiness and waste. And the heart has melted and the knees have knocked together, as when a person is in a lot of fear, showing what they are about to go through. Those people who claim to have all the power, who believe that no one can touch them, their knees will be knocking together like in a cartoon once they see what is about to happen to them. Once it happens, really, because even when they see it, they won't believe it until it actually happens. And much pain is in all loins, and all their faces have become flushed, as in flush of blood, from blood, and therefore pale from fear. And all the faces have become flushed. Where is the den of the lions and the feeding place of the young lions, where the lion, the lioness, and the lion's cub walked, with no one to disturb them? Obviously, in the negative, Satan is a lion that is going around looking for whom he may devour. But Yahushua came from Yahudah, representing the lion of Yahudah, but Yahushua came as a lamb. Now his messenger, the last, is coming as a lion. Where is the den of the lions and the feeding place of the young lions, where the lion, the lioness, and the lion's cub walked, with no one to disturb them? The lion tore in pieces enough for his cubs, and strangled for his lioness, and strangled for his lionesses, and filled his caves with prey, and his dens with torn prey. That's what Yahweh is coming to do to them, like a lion with his chosen few, his congregations, take everything away from them, who will become a simple prey. The lion tore in pieces enough for his cubs, and strangled for his lionesses, and filled his caves with prey, and his dens with torn prey. Also, obviously, like I was saying, in this negative sense, the enemy throughout history has torn in pieces enough for those who follow him, his cubs, and also for his fallen angels, Samael and Halel and Azazel, and strangled for his lionesses, for his congregations, for his nations that have followed him, or have been under him, and filled his caves with prey, and his dens with torn prey. See, I am against you, declares Yahweh of hosts, and I shall burn your chariots in smoke. and the sword devour your young lions. So you see now is um, making it clear how they, as the enemy and the children of the enemy, have strangled, have torn in pieces, have made prey and taken everything to their own caves. But Yahweh is against them. So, see, I am against you, declares Yahweh of hosts, and I shall burn your chariots in smoke, and the sword devour your young lions, your young kings. And I shall cut off your prey from the earth, and I shall cut off your prey from the earth. So they will have nothing, they will be empty, like we just saw as well. And also, if his prey is taken away from the earth, then he, the enemy, won't have anything to feed on, and therefore will die of hunger. And I shall cut off your prey from the earth, for we know that the serpent eats dust. Man, when he dies, becomes dust, so that the serpent can eat. So if man doesn't die, the serpent will die of hunger. The serpent will starve. The lion is roaring, looking for whom he may devour. But if he cannot devour anything else, because his prey shall be cut off from the earth, then he will starve as well. And no longer is the voice of your messengers heard. Once the enemy is cut off, no longer will the voice of her or his messengers be heard, as in his pastors, his teachers, those false prophets that bring a message from the enemy claiming it is from the Most High Yahweh. So finally, eventually, there will be no false doctrines, no false teachers, no false pastors, priests, prophets, or whatever. No longer is the voice of your messengers heard. And look how it mentions that in contrast to, and I shall cut off your prey from the earth, because it is through the voice of their messengers that people become prey. So once the false teachers are taken away, he won't have any prey on the earth. And that's how that chapter ends.